Hey, 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 hey there. I see you there. Okay. Out there noticing. I see you over there noticing. What are you noticing, you may ask? You're noticing that it's 7:51. I know. I know. I had things to do. Okay. I had things to do. And when I was doing those things, the clock didn't stop and let me have my turn. It just kept on running like clocks like to do. Those damn clocks. So, you know, now I'm here and we can get on with the show. Hello, guys. Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to the Inner Storyteller. Welcome back to the channels. If you are here, please first like the video. Please like the video. Just click the like button. Helps me get out there to other people. And subscribe to the channels. Helps the mission to one day monetize this podcast. If you are here, then you are indeed in for some real conversations. Okay? We get into natural law, we get into religion, like we will today, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the great. We get into anarchy, culture, money, and how mankind is manipulated from the shadows by forces that do not have our best interests at heart. But we are not bashing faith systems here. Okay, this whole series called The Word is not to bash faith systems. We are simply examining the psychological affects and effects of the stories that we have the most faith in, the ones we have the most stake in. I want to see if my camera will zoom in for me. There we go. Thank you. And that examination has to sit right alongside an honest look at the current human condition, which is slavery. Government is slavery, good people. And the question that we have to keep coming back to is what can actually be improved with the proper understanding of the inner storyteller and how it works. And if any of that makes you uneasy, uncomfortable, or angry, please know that although you are 100% encouraged to stay, you are welcome to leave at any time after you like the video, of course. You are not welcome to leave if you have not yet clicked the like button, says the Terminator Arnold Schwarzenegger. So, we're getting back into the word series today. Let me go ahead and put my picture up so you guys can see it. 1 second. Let me grab the mouse. Right. Getting back into the word. I love this picture. It's got Coach Colin over here looking great. Shout out to the late Charlie Kirk. And we got Candace, the principal, as Baron Coleman calls her on the Real Baron podcast. Um, and we're talking about, I noticed a pattern right now in a specific corner of the internet that I like to pay attention to. Okay, a number of people, public figures, podcasters, people in general, um, especially people that like have been covering and following the Charlie Kirk case, just happens to be like that, are exploring or converting to Catholicism. And a lot of them are being starting to share more and more about that journey. Charlie Kirk himself was exploring Catholicism before he was, you know, his life was stolen from him. Candace Owens converted very publicly after she married George. Coach Colin recently said on his show that he's been exploring it too, and it's not just the architecture. If you know, you know. And, you know, because, people were saying in response to Candace on her show, saying that Charlie Kirk was exploring Catholicism. People were saying to Candace, it was just the architecture. He really liked the architecture. Um, but obviously it was more than just the architecture with Charlie. It's more than just the architecture with Coach Colin. And I'm not bringing this up to critique any of these individuals. You are allowed to orient yourself to any belief system that you choose and to change it and to, do what you will with it. You are free to do so. I'm bringing it up because it illustrates something a little bit broader in how adults choose their favorite organized religions that I think deserves some examination. Okay? That's all. That's it. That's all. I love Candace Owens. I love Coach Collins' show and wish everybody in this corner of the internet the best. The question that I want to sit with today is, do you know why you believe what you believe about the religion of your choosing? Not about God, by the way, about the specific organized, institutionalized tradition that you are in or moving toward. Do you actually grasp what drew you in, right? Or were you perhaps drawn in by symbols, specifically symbols that carry stories that only your inner storyteller can hear, so to speak? Stories that got filed into certain mental drawers before you had the tools to examine what was actually inside the container. Here's an analogy that I keep kind of coming back to when I think about how most adults are approaching religious conversion, exploring religious conversion, even how authors write about religious conversion, not necessarily the missionaries themselves, um, who write in a different context, but people who study these things. It's almost like they're at the mall, right? They're just at the mall, kind of looking around, going in different stores, seeing where they want to spend their money. Now, a mall, much like the pick of the litter when it comes to religions, have big stores and little stores. They have some stores you can spend your whole day right there at the store, even though it's attached to the shopping mall. And they have little stores where you can get, you can go to like Lids and they may have two or three types of items, right? They have hats, obviously. They may have like hat cleaner and I don't know, headbands, something else that's not a hat, right? Three, four, maybe seven items max or so. Some stores in the shopping malls are like this. And they also have restaurants, which have menus with a whole bunch of items you could pick from. You can spend a lot of time there. Some malls are attached. Some Targets are attached to a mall. I don't think any WalMarts are, but I've seen some things when it comes to these malls, and people shopping, people exploring their religious tastes seem to kind of walk in with a general sense of what they need. Walk into the mall. They move through the aisles and stores and hallways. Something catches their eye. They pick it up, look at the fabric, they check the price, they hold it up and think about how it'll fit. They hold it up to their shoulders, right? And they make a decision based on how they feel, what the story is that they live when encountering their favorite religion. What they are almost never doing, though, let's return to that article of clothing. Okay, looking at the clothing, feeling the fabric, holding it up to their shoulders, and things like this. What they are almost never doing is asking, what exactly was in the hearts and minds of the people who made this item? What were the working conditions in which this item was made? What actually went into the process of building this thing that I'm holding from the ground up? What does it actually do once it's on my body and I'm living in it rather than just trying it on in the store? People are treating faith in the same way, sort of, kind of. Okay. And I'm not saying that they're always drawn to something worthless or something meaningless like like any random t-shirt in the mall. Okay. I'm not saying that. The architecture of a cathedral is genuinely extraordinary. The intellectual tradition of Catholicism is genuinely deep. The historical context that a well educated priest can offer is genuinely more than most Protestant churches seem to provide sometimes. These are things about Catholicism in the real world that have real value for real people. But they are also the fabric and the price tag and the cut. They are not necessarily the garment's relationship to your actual body in the actual conditions of your actual life. And the question of whether the tradition will produce genuine experiential knowledge of God, which is a real present moment encounter with whatever God actually is that you remember. That question cannot be answered by evaluating the aesthetics alone. Our girl Candace, for instance, Candace Owens, has been quite public about her conversion to Catholicism, although she does stray away from speaking directly to what her journey is like real time. I mean, she'll mention conversations with a priest every now and again, but she doesn't talk in religious contexts um very often. Like she'll respond to somebody misusing a Bible verse to try and justify genocide or something. But she doesn't really speak in religious. Her show's not about that. She talks about culture. She talks about what happened to Charlie Kirk. She talks about things other than religion for the most part. But her conversion to Catholicism is very public. And now that Charlie Kirk uh, was assassinated, she, this kind of came back up because, again, like we reminded you in the beginning of the show, she talked about often how Charlie was converting to Catholicism, and she would joke with him about, "Oh, you're too smart to be Protestant," and certain things, and that he was uh, keeping her sort of abreast to his own spiritual journey. She's described her conversion in terms of its historical depth, right? That Protestantism didn't necessarily focus enough on history, at least when she, became intrigued from a few conversations that she had with George, her husband, as well as some priests in her life. Um, she said the Catholic priests offered real context and that the tradition had intellectual substance that felt more grounded than what she'd experienced elsewhere. She's also described a very specific moment, which was a conversation with a priest that led to a realization about American history, that America was founded by Freemasons, specifically the dark occult variant of the Freemasonic order. Um, not people that go and hang out at the lodge with their buddies and complain about their lives and, talk a little bit about philosophy. Um, it's not that, right? These were very prominent figures within the order, obviously, as they are shrined individuals. And that uh, she was talking about how converting to Catholicism would at least place her among a priest class who had a more historical context for their beliefs. And she could explore that. And she has a mind for connecting history and like seeing long term patterns and putting puzzles together, as she would say. Right. And, you know, that's reasoning, but there's a piece missing, in my opinion, in that. And I don't mean missing in her heart, I mean in what she's said publicly so far or whatever. Right. Again, there's nothing accusatory toward anybody that I may talk about in this episode. First of all, it's a genuine intellectual reason. It's a real observation that, you know, the relative historical depth of different Christian denominations may appeal differently, more so to different personalities. It's an honest account of how her thinking developed. What it isn't is an actual account of experiential encounters or an experiential encounter or an ongoing one with God necessarily. Again, not that that's not in her heart or that's not true, just that that's not the context certain things were said in so far publicly. It's an account of finding a more historically literate community. Right? Genuine encounter with God doesn't necessarily require any intellectual depth whatsoever. So it just is two different things. One, to me, feels like it's more important to focus on. And why? It's because your religion does become a core thing for you, right? When you convert to a religion, be it an established religion or some sort of remix of your favorite principles. Um, when you really, adopt and live by and ritualize a religion, it becomes a very core thing to your identity pool, a huge percentage, if you will, of your identity pool, right? Becomes a whole layer of your personality type. And that has such great influence on your automatic response triggers that it matters for our, shared objective as a human family to create the best world for our children. Historical context, however valuable, is still man's writing about man's experience of nature and God and people across time. And as we've talked about on this channel, history has been managed and it has been it's my, you know, I want to say supported thought. I'm trying not to be too arrogant here. It's my thought that history has been managed since we figured out we can write it down. It's shaped by the interests of the people doing both the writing and the funding for the writing, or for the funding for the distribution. Right? If you can fund distribution, you could probably hire your own scribes and eventually authors. Knowing more history about who founded what and what they believe doesn't necessarily tell you whether the notions about the God in the religion align with what is. You can become the most historically literate religionist, the most historically literate Catholic, the most historically literate Protestant, if you will, in your whole state, in your whole country, in the whole world, and still have never had an experiential encounter that your Catholic tradition is supposed to be basically pointing toward, right? So again, I'm not saying this. I'm not saying this to anybody that might be named. I'm just using a name or two to put a figure, right? That's all. It's like in watching the people that are saying these things publicly, that's what gave me the idea for this episode. And so, I really want to get across that and I'm not going to say it again after this, but I really want to get across that I'm not aiming animosity or negative or arrogance on purpose toward anybody named in this episode. Okay. All right. Now, let me define what I mean because I think that's important. I think people are shopping for the trappings of a faith system and not shopping for, direct experience or something like that. Okay, they're shopping for the trappings. The trappings of a faith system are the things that you can evaluate without being inside the faith experientially, like the architecture, the art, the music, some of the rituals that you can see without being all the way in, the intellectual tradition and the historical depth of the authors and the doctrine, the priest class, right, as well as the congregate, the community of the religion, the aesthetic of the whole thing, how it feels to be in the space, to be among those people, and to put on that identity. None of these things are nothing. They do carry real meaning. They were built by human beings who were genuinely reaching toward something and put everything they had into reaching. A Gothic cathedral is one of the most astonishing things that a human being has ever built. And not just in my opinion. I mean, this is a very shared opinion, right? You don't have to have this opinion, but this is a very shared opinion. The art that fills it is extraordinary. The ritual that happens inside it has been refined over centuries by people who took it more seriously than most modern people take anything. People with a genuine interest in preserving the religion's trappings, as well as maybe a genuine interest in furthering their direct experience with God. Although there is a caveat that I have not said about that yet. Here's what the trappings cannot do: they cannot tell you whether the tradition is producing actual transformation in people's actions, people's meditations. They cannot tell you whether the people most embedded in the tradition are closer to genuine moral alignment and genuine experiential knowledge of God than people outside of the religion. Right? They can tell you some quotes from the religion and just say, "And I believe that," um, and not it not be testable. Like for instance, I was just watching a clip on Instagram. Wes Huff, shout out to Wes Huff. Also, love that guy's work. Great guy. And I'm not a Christian. You don't have to be a Christian to love Wes Huff's work. He's also a linguistics expert, which is just a fascinating thing. He probably's memorized the Hebrew and the Greek translations of the Bible. Um, but he was on Andrew Schultz's show. What's it called, the Flagrant podcast. He was on Flagrant, and that they had some questions about people that are in other countries who may live a moral lifestyle. I think Andrew was saying they may live a Christian lifestyle, but they don't have any terminology for Christian themes, and they don't have the story of Jesus Christ as why they are living the morally aligned lifestyle. Meaning they don't steal, um, they take marriage seriously, they take family seriously, they uh, don't practice usury if they're in banking. Like they live a Christian lifestyle without um, having Christian terminology and themes and images and artwork in their head. And for Wes, and I disagree with him here, it seemed like he couldn't just say, well, yeah, obviously that person is getting into heaven, or whatever equivalent to that person is not going to get punished for being sinful if he's living it. Um, it seemed like he had to wrestle with this line in the Bible where Jesus is saying, um, "No one gets to the Father but through me. I am the way, the truth, and the life." Way implying you have to follow me, you have to know about me to follow me, right? And you got to follow me. And truth, meaning God, life, meaning God's gift, in my interpretation. And uh uh no one gets to the Father but through me, without knowledge of me, without saying my name, without getting ritualized into my thing, into the well, not into my thing, into the thing that humans will build after I die twice. After I die and then I come back and teach some more and then disappear. Um and functionally am no, I don't want to say Christ is dead. That's disrespectful. Complete, the completely different meaning of the word dead. I didn't, you know, wasn't headed in the dark place. But regardless, uh not here, right? And people built this thing, and now without being ritualized into this thing that was built in the name of Christ called Christianity, um you you cannot get to the Father. God don't want nothing to do with you. And I just, for me, that's just a very simple thing. It's like, no, if you live a moral life, then yeah, you don't get punished by the creator of the universe, um, nor the mechanics of the universe he created, because you didn't ritualize yourself into this man-made tradition, right? It's like it seems very simple. It seems very, very simple to me. And to a lot of people who grew up within a tradition and awakened out of it, but also didn't rush to fall into solipsism, which we explored very heavily and very carefully last episode. Uh, it seems very simple. If someone without any knowledge of Christianity or Christian themes is living a moral lifestyle, living morally, and let's say they're human, let's say they still lie, you know, 30 times a year. They tell a little white lie, get out of something, or lie by omission, or some shit. 30 times a year. They may get angry 30 times a year. They may get lustful 100 times a year, or some shit. I don't know, right? Whatever. 5 times, whatever number you want to put to it. Let's say they're human, but they live and they're real about their moral values. They're just not Christian. Do they go to the Father? And Wes was, he was kind of like, I don't know. I don't know, cuz. And it's like, well, why don't you know? I don't know. Like I'm not pushing anything on him, but it's just like that. Just it's yes, yes. You don't have to. Yes, and I know that means that you also don't have to, even with the knowledge of Christianity, this man-made thing as an option, that you can um choose every day to live morally and gain the same principles, gain the same knowledge as far as moral knowledge that's taught through Christ's example and parables without any knowledge of Christ or the story of Christ, or with partial knowledge of the story of Christ and choosing not to delve into that, but to delve into a different system or create your own system to a degree, not from the ground up, but you build on things that overlap. And and absolutely not get punished when you die. You don't have there's no sense in that. And a lot of religionists fall into that mindset. I say fall. I don't mean that disrespectfully. So, you know, the trappings cannot tell you whether the container is carrying what it claims to carry, or whether the container is the thing with nothing particularly divine inside it beyond what any sincere human effort toward transcendence would produce, regardless of which building it happens to be in. Right? Again, it cannot tell you whether the container, the religion, carries what it claims to carry, or whether the container, the religion, is the thing with nothing particularly divine inside it beyond what any sincere human effort towards transcendence would produce, regardless of which building it happens in. Okay, I hope that makes sense. In simpler terms, they can't tell you whether or not this religion is uniquely positioned to carry anybody into heaven just by getting ritualized into it, or if any human being pursuing truth and living morally can reap the benefit promised by the religion. In my lived experience, as well as in my opinion and research, it seems to me that anybody living a genuinely moral lifestyle, of course, struggling through it, getting it wrong sometimes, is a part of it, but living, and I get it wrong every day, right? Um, Living a moral lifestyle, making moral choices, choosing right action over wrong action consistently gets you the same result no matter what religion you're a part of. And that's after death as well as in this life. You get divine protection when everything aligns the right way for you, or your story gets divine protection, and you generate good karma for the human story, meaning you inspire people to do good around you just by your example. All of these things happen no matter what your religion is if you are living a genuinely good life and making and choosing right action and standing up for yourself and standing for freedom and truth, and um, let's just say like the non-aggression principle meets the non-passivity principle, right? Have the conversations in your own words about this. Ask somebody why they got into Baptist or Methodist or Catholic or Orthodox faith, or Islamic, um, fruit of Islam or traditional, the different kinds of traditional Islam. Ask them why, and listen carefully to what they say. See whether the answer has um, spiritual substance or aesthetic substance to it. Whether it describes something that happened inside that they couldn't manufacture themselves, or something that changed the way that they actually experienced being alive, or if they felt emotions only, so to speak. Um, you know, if they describe the community, the history, or the way that they talk history, the music, right, the architecture, um, you know, the fact that Candace Owens converted and that's somebody that she respects, and Baron Coleman is somebody that they respect. He's also Catholic, I believe. Um, Either answer will be honest, and either answer is completely fine. Okay, but just see if you ever get a response that points more so inward versus outward. Like, yeah, I encountered something that you know happened, and it's real for me in this moment right now. Or if it's more like, yeah, I went around these people, and the people were this, and the buildings were this, and um the words in the book are this, and I really like this concept, that kind of thing. See where it lands. See what you get. It's a good little experiment. Now, here's where it connects to the inner storyteller framework. I just want to pull my little picture back up so we can take a look here. When you walk into a temple, a cathedral for the first time, and something in you responds, something quiets down, and something opens up, something feels like a recognition. Your inner storyteller is going to do what it's supposed to do and what it's designed to do every time, which is filing that experience in the drawer you've associated with the cathedral or the whatever the temple that you stepped into. It assigns meaning to the symbol, the architecture, the lighting, the smells, the community. All of that arrives in the inner storyteller and gets sorted by the sorting function of said inner storyteller and gets filed, meaning it lives there. And as the symbol comes back up, the file is what feeds your conscious mind thoughts. And for many people, an experience like that, walking into a temple, getting an emotional response, will get sorted into this means that this religion and the people that run it are true and sacred. And that experience will get filed into the sacred drawer before any examination ever really happens. Before the question of what actually produced this beauty, at what cost, and how, before the question of whether the institution is responsible for the beauty, right? Or whether whoever's responsible for the beauty in the architecture or in the paintings or in the stuff that you experience when you walk in and you have this feeling, um, if whoever is responsible for the building and the trappings has a documented history of harm that has never really been accounted for, right? Or before the question of whether the encounter you're having is with God or with extraordinarily refined aesthetics of some kind. right? Aesthetics of an institution that has always needed exactly this kind of response from exactly this kind of person standing where you're standing right now. At least when we take into account the fact that spirituality and psychology are the same study to a degree, that you cannot separate psychology from the journey of spirituality for an individual. So, the symbol, the trappings of the religion carries a story. The story enters through the eyes and ears and skin before conscious thought arrives, and the filing happens at the speed of the sorting function, which is faster, exponentially faster than the examination. Okay, it's faster than the questions you would want to ask if you could see the process happening, faster than you could come up with those questions. This is not unique, by the way, to cathedrals or Catholicism. It happens in every tradition that has invested in the aesthetics in a way that appeals to psychology. It happens in the megachurch with the lights, the band, the music, the celebrity visits. It happens in the mosque. It happens with the call to prayer. It happens in the temple with the ceremony. It happens anywhere and everywhere that human beings have put sustained, sincere effort into creating an environment that signals something real and important is happening inside of you because you are here. And again, the signal is not false. Not saying the signal is false. Something is real. And that realness is being pointed at by the symbols that are carrying the stories. The question is whether the tradition pointing at the symbol, pardon me, is not a finger that you confuse for the moon. Meaning, you point to the moon, you say, "Look, it's the moon," and somebody looks at your finger, right? Whether the finger is the moon or not, whether the thing pointing is the same thing as the thing being pointed at or not. Now, I'm not trying to define what God is or how God arrives to anybody's life. That's way above my pay grade. What I'm saying is that the accounts of genuine spiritual encounter across every tradition, this is that caveat that I was getting at earlier. The genuine spiritual encounters that are on record across every tradition, across every century, in the people whose lives most clearly demonstrate the fruit of genuine alignment with something beyond themselves, almost never describe the aesthetics as the substance of why they believe what they believe. Also, they almost never describe the aesthetics of religions, although names and sometimes pictures, uh, 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 encounters where you kind of see somebody and they're describing somebody in a tradition, Krishna, Jesus, Buddha, um, their spiritual master that was like their spiritual guide, and then they died, and like they have a spiritual experience and awakening, and they see them and encounter them again, um, in a magical moment of sorts. They don't. It doesn't erase the the characters in the books of the traditions, it doesn't erase the aesthetics either. It just is detached from the aesthetics, the community, the smells, the beautification of the religion. It's just not, it doesn't even come up when people are talking about their real encounters. They describe something that happened inside of them that they couldn't manufacture or explain, something that cost them the story that they had been running about their lives, something that required them to become different rather than simply being somewhere different. Remember in the book, we talk about the Magi. If you haven't seen the first video of this podcast, it's called The Inner Storyteller Part 1, and it is me reading, it's the audio book of me reading the introduction and first chapter of my new book, The Inner Storyteller, and I go over the three kings story in the Christmas story, or the three kings that are featured in the Christmas story. I call them the three magi because they're magi. You can call them three kings if you want. Um, but these three men, they did not arrive at the summit where the manger was because they found the most historically impressive tradition and followed it. They didn't even follow Jewish tradition. Okay, they arrived through following the stars and their own symbolic system that they had genuine commitment to. Their tradition was the vehicle that led them to Christ, which was not Judea or Mosaic. It wasn't the Jewish. It wasn't the Ten Commandments. The encounter was the destination, but their own tradition was the vehicle. Right, the summit of the mountain. When you're at the bottom of the mountain, looks like there's one path to get up there safely. From the top of the mountain, looking down, you see there are many paths to get down, implying there are many paths to get up. You just have to look. A vehicle that never moves is not transportation, it's furniture. And a tradition that you join for the architecture, the history, the community, and the intellectual depth without the question of whether it will actually take you somewhere or is actually taking you somewhere is very beautiful furniture. So the question is, do you know why you chose what you chose? Right? This is not an argument against any tradition. This is not an argument against Catholicism, Protestantism, Islam, or any organized institutional faith. Right? It's an argument for examination. It's not even an argument. It's a invitation for examination, for bringing the same honesty to the question of why you believe what you believe about the specific institutionalized or organized tradition that you're in. Not just what drew you in, right? Those are real. Those are great. But beneath those, what are you actually looking for? What are you actually finding? What is it doing to your behavior patterns and your thought patterns? I should say behavioral choices and thought choices. And is the tradition you're in or exploring actually producing what it's promise? In you, not in history, not in architecture, but in you right now. Is that happening? What story are you willing to live? Thank you so very much. Please let me know in the comments, guys. Please let me know in the comments. Um, I really like covering topics like this because it gives me a chance to explore what I believe. And, when I put together the scripts and, get to thinking about what I want in the thumbnail and, you know, I get excited because I'm like, look, I want to talk about this thing. I don't want to come off as if, this and that, but I just get to going and I get excited and I start talking to my homies at work about stuff. And, I do want you guys to get in those comments and let me know where I'm wrong, what you align with, what resonates with you. Talk amongst yourselves and share the video, right? Also like the video. Please like the video. Please. I heard manila folders. You get manila folders just by liking the video. They just magically start raining down in your office. Now, if you don't have an office, then as soon as you have one, the right kind of office, it'll just magically appear and you'll have all the manila folders that you'll ever need instantaneously. And they'll be filed away perfectly for you, labeled and everything. Okay? That just happened. Just like the video and it done deal. Check your office. If it's not there, just make sure you add what you need to add in the office and boom, there you go. So like the video and thank you so very much for hanging out with me talking about the word. Again, we are not bashing faith systems on this channel. We are simply examining the stories that we have the most faith in and how those stories help shape society. And we have to examine the fruits of these traditions and religions and patterns of behavior being here. What has it produced? Right? We got 4,000 years or what, 4,000 years of uh uh the Jewish tradition. We got 2,000 years Christianity. We got 2,000 years, I guess, of Islam. Uh, thousands of years of Hinduism. I don't really know how far back the yogic traditions and things go. Um, and obviously you got at least 6 to 15,000 years dark occult psychology, the dark occult sciences of um, and the OG. You have natural law. You have what is sacred, even if nobody speaks to it, knows about it, cares about it, or believes in it. Nature. What is, right? And not just what is as far as what I individually can see. No, what is. It's too simple for even some minds to grasp upon first encountering the thought. What is? Not a question, right? A definition. What is? Um, yeah, man. My intention for this channel is that we explore these things honestly and that we look at these stories, the fruits of these stories being mass distributed and mass believed in and ritualized and institutionalized and enforced. Um, we examine what these stories do alongside an honest look at the current human condition, which is slavery. Government is slavery, and government is what people do right now. So, government is slavery. And, well, what story are you willing to live? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see y'all tomorrow for the next one.